Hi, I'm Richard Butler from DPReview, and I'm here with Richard Pelkowski from Olympus to talk about the Olympus OMD EM52. Richard, would you like to talk us through a couple of features of the camera?
Sure. Very excited about this product, Richard, and thanks for having us here today to tell the audience a little bit more about it in depth. This camera sits in the middle of our OMD family. It is, in fact, the direct replacement for the very successful EM5, our EM5 camera that we came out with a few years ago. This is the replacement. It builds upon it. You know, we got 3 cameras in the OMD family.
The existing EM5, I mean, that also had 5-axis image stabilization, but that wasn't rated to the same level. Is that right?
The image stabilization unit in it, and as you know, is come up to a much higher level now. It's now capable of the whole 5 steps of compensation, shake compensation, is really very much at the heart of this product in terms of what this product can do in terms of the technology and capability. So it's a very similar unit in terms of it being 5-axis, but we've actually, the big changes in this one, the way we've been able to achieve the 5 steps of compensation, I'm sure the 2 units differ a bit in terms of the mechanical construction and so on and so forth. They're not identical, but it has more to do, not with a new IS unit, but more to do with the gyro sensors, the input that it gets, and the way the camera's brains can process it all to actually achieve that 5 steps of compensation in a lightning fast fashion.
What was the most challenging feature to create for the EM52?
From where I stand and from my conversations with the R&D people, I'd have to say it was the 40 megapixel high-res shot. You know, the movie capability that's been brought up to a much higher level on this product, you know, we'll talk about that. That also has a lot to do with the image stabilization and the performance that we're getting out of that image stabilization unit. But the 40 megapixel high-res shot, I never saw that coming. I didn't expect that was going to happen in this product. I knew that the movie capability of the product was really going to be coming up to a much higher level, but I was really surprised when I heard about this. I was probably skeptical, as a lot of people are when you hear about that, because if it's not something, you know, just coming truly off the sensor and, you know, one single exposure, you're like, well, you know, there's got to be compromises or, you know, pros and cons to that. But what I've seen myself so far is it's truly a very, very high resolution file, a JPEG and a RAW file you get out of the camera, and very, very usable.
The first thing that a couple of people asked in the comments on our first impressions review was, well, should I buy this or the EM1? Because, you know, the EM1's price has dropped to a comparable level. So how do you see that separation? How do you see this sort of separation of the 3 products in the line?
That's a good question. The EM1, I think, still occupies a really nice space in that 3-level product family architecture. You know, it's the most durable, I would say, camera that we have. Not that this guy doesn't have the same level of weatherproofing and construction. This has also got a magnesium chassis and everything. But the EM1 it's a larger camera. It's an L-shaped body, which plays very well in North America, as you all know, even though it is still very portable.
So by L-shaped, you mean it's got a more pronounced grip to it?
Yes, yeah, it's L-shaped as opposed to this guy, which has got a bit of a grip area, but this is a little more symmetrical in shape and a little more traditional, which actually is held in very high favor by a lot of shooters as well that want something that's more compact.
But you pick up the EM52, and although at first it looks the same, it's a much more sort of dense, solid-feeling camera.
It's much more substantial. You know, I kind of held it like this. You know, you can see it's similar. It's got basically a symmetrical kind of body. I almost forgot to mention, we've got a swivel tilt LCD on this camera now.
Obviously, we've seen APS-C start to push up to sort of 24 and 28 megapixels. We've seen full frame going to 36, and then last week up to 50 megapixels. Yeah. This is still a 16 megapixel camera. How concerned are you about the message that gives to the market?
I'm concerned about it in terms of being a negative. I'm really not too much. You know, when we were back and had 8 megapixel cameras, I used to get the same exact question, and I used to say, and sometimes get myself in trouble. Well, I think, you know, from what I understand in terms of electronics and also the physical limitations of you know, the analog part of the capture on a sensor, photodiode size, and all of that. I think there's so much that's possible through electronic and engine processing, and even I don't think any of us can really know what's going to happen with sensor technology in the future. So I think there's a lot further that we can go with the Micro Four Thirds standard. And I'll say this also, it's got a lot to do about the intended customer. You know, our customer is not the person necessarily that needs a camera that's, you know, has got a 36 megapixel or 40 or 50 megapixel sensor. You know, there's intended uses for these cameras, and you can even see manufacturers that do make products that have such a high resolution available to the shooter. They're actually starting to stratify it now into, okay, well, you shoot product or you shoot landscape, and you know, so you got two different products for you. And that's fine. But we want to think about our intended customer. You know, what are they doing with their photography? You know, printing continues to decline. You know, printing now is really just in magazine, and in terms of higher resolution files, you do need that for product photography. But you know, who's our customer? So we look at who our customer is, and we're making a product that's going to work well for them.
Thanks very much for your time. We really appreciate you flying out here. And we look forward to spending more time with the camera and yeah, seeing how many of these promises sort of work properly in the real world. I appreciate that very much, and it's been great talking with you and hearing about what your readership is thinking about and saying about the product, and I'm sure our R&D people will be listening as well.